The meeting of the Public Safety Committee is now called to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Vaccaro. Present. Alderman Cone.
Present.
Alderman Arnowitz. Alderwoman Hubbard. Present. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad.
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd. Chairman Kennedy.
Here.
6 present. You have a quorum.
I've heard from Alderman Kotar. Would you please excuse him? This is the first meeting of the Public Safety Committee for the 2017 through 18 legislative session. I would like to welcome all of the members onto the Public Safety Committee. Any new members, we welcome you in particular, and I believe we also have not only new members of the Public Safety Committee, but a new alderperson, period. So we welcome you to Public Safety. We deal with a number of items and issues. It's an active committee, and so we look forward with the various pieces of legislation that will be coming up this session. We have 2 bills before us, Board Bill number 10 and 9. We will first take up Board Bill number 10, sponsored by Alderwoman Sharon Tyus. Would you please, Alderman Arnowitz is here.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Board Bill number 10 is becoming now all too standard prohibition of issues of any package or drink liquor license within current boundaries of the First Ward. It's for a period of 3 years. I do want to tell the committee that this summer I've been working on a more comprehensive bill because we have all these different ward bills, and I think, so I've been looking at the entire liquor, the way we do liquor and the way we issue them, and when we first started doing this, the chairman will know this, Mary Ross did the first one back in the early 90s. And since that time, we've kind of hodgepodge did this with each person adding their own moratorium. And I do believe that at some point we have to make a new comprehensive plan. But until we can do that, First Ward still wants to prohibit liquor in the First Ward.
Do you have the roll? Yes, sir. Any questions from members of the committee? Alderman Boyd?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've seen quite a few of these in the past 14 years, and it seemed like each one is a little different. I've noticed some language in here that I was wondering if it was standard is what you came up with about the transfer. Is that standard language about transferring?
That's so to protect the person, because if I had a liquor license and I am...
I like it. You
no,
don't
I'm
have to-
just...
but is that standard, or did you
It's been
create
standard
this?
for me,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I can't tell, everybody has sometimes little, but yeah, I think that's standard language.
Okay.
But I've been doing these for 20-some years.
It's pretty standard.
Okay. That's all I had.
Alderman Vaccaro? Any questions?
Not much of a question. I'm supportive of it. That's not, I would probably argue against something we do citywide, because I don't have a moratorium in my ward because the constituents basically have the right to sign against it. And I can tell you that the odds of getting a liquor license in the 23rd ward is like slim to none. So I would just let you know that I wouldn't support something that was citywide, but certainly very supportive of, your neighborhood. And,
No. I'm sorry, Alderman. It wouldn't be it wouldn't, so I'm sorry if I misspoke. It was, we have a comprehensive liquor application already. We need to look at that. There's some things that need to be changed, so it wouldn't be a moratorium. It's another way. Like, for instance, I'll give you something I've been working on, the petitions. The people who apply a lot of times cheat. In fact, I've caught them several times. They will have other people sign them. So mine is to come back and require that there be some kind of certification of the petition, instead of just having any petition out there, that they have to sign who carried it, and then they have to get it notarized. So to make it so that they can't do these kind of things that they're doing to go around our requirements. It's not for a standard moratorium.
And I agree that it needs to be looked at, but even for another reason. We had UGAS in the neighborhood who became Phillips. It was a name change. And they had to go through the whole liquor license process all over again. And it got really silly when we were getting, because I was one of the ones helping collect signatures, and they said, well, we looked back from a signature from 15, 20 years ago, and this lady's signature doesn't match. So went out and we had her sign it again, filmed it while she signed it. She said, here I am, signed it. We brought the video back of her signing it with her, this is me, showed it me, and this is, she signed it. And they said, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't match the signature from, I don't know if years ago it was a different one, but they refused to accept that signature.
Your signature changes as you age.
I know, it was just, I'm just saying, I agree with you that we need to, especially someone that already has a license, you know, and then the other thing that's wild is if you have a liquor license and you die, and one of your kids or cousins or something, they can automatically assume that liquor license without going through anything, so you don't know what you're getting. So I agree with that
So
part.
I don't understand what was going on in your ward, although I'm envious because they don't even check my signature. So what you're saying is what I want to happen in mine. But I want to tell you this, the way the law is written, if it's a corporation, you are supposed to be able to transfer from corporations to corporations. So I do not even understand what they were doing. If that was one corporation to another one, it should have been transferable.
So Bob Kraber, who, if I read the paper correctly, is coming back, but the two ladies that are up there, I will say that they're doing everything to what they believe the letter of the law is. And I can tell you that they checked every signature. And like I said, the only thing that aggravated me was when they were checking a signature that the lady had to think we were out of our minds. Because we were back there the last time, I had brought Leroy Grant with me, and we actually filmed the lady signing it. They wouldn't accept it. But anyway,
I would
I do agree
love
that
to have
they're
that kind. I would gather that most people don't have that kind of intense certification. I have had the other experience. I have a place at Kings Highway in West Florissant that applied, and they said he had enough signatures. So that morning I said, okay, I'm going to go out and check myself, because I already knew that he couldn't have. He had Antonio's step-grandmother on there, Mrs. French, who runs the cleaners, and I knew these people, and I know they don't support liquor. So when I said I was going to go out, that was that morning at 8 o'clock. They ran out there, and by 1:30 when the hearing came, they said, oh, we don't have enough signatures. They didn't check that petition, okay? They just accepted them. And then when the guy came in, when we questioned him about who carried the petition, oh, I don't know, just somebody in the neighborhood. So our petition is really too lax, and there are other things. I'm not trying to make it impossible for people, but I'm saying we ought to have, and I've been through 3 recalls, so I learned a lot about petitions, and they ought to be something that you can bet your life on that they are correct. And they do have, a lot of times, people just falsifying signatures, and if we don't catch them, and I'm glad that they have it like that, but I think they should have it like that for everyone.
Well, I won't keep it going, but,
Right, okay.
but they actually, whoever collected signatures on that page, we did have to sign our name, that we were the ones that collected that signature.
That should have
You know,
to
and
be.
that was all, I mean, that's part of what we did. But anyway,
All
thank
right,
you
then,
so
we do
much.
have others. Alderman Cone, any questions? Alderman Arnowitz.
I actually have no questions for the Alderwoman. I think she's doing what she thinks is right, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderman Muhammad.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Been moved and seconded that we pass Board Bill 10 out with a do pass recommendation. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion on the motion, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderman Arnowitz. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderwoman Boyd. Chairman Kennedy.
Aye.
7 aye votes do pass.
By your vote, we sustain the motion.
Can I ask a question? So when you have both of the Boyds on the committee, I'm like, he just voted, do you know? Can't we just say P. Boyd or something? I know I'm not on this committee, but I was like, he already voted.
I'm still getting used to it.
Can't we have a P. Boyd then? She's second, so he already is Alderman Boyd. Just a suggestion.
Boyd Senior.
Gotta be clear who
Which Boyd it is?
motions that who second, Boyd and Boyd.
We'll now take up Board Bill number 9. Alderman Vaccaro.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the committee.
Thank you.
Board Bill number 9, we'll all be familiar with. Shane, you were co-sponsor last year. And I'm glad to see that Mr. Glass is here. And I brought, in case anybody, even Lyda voted yes on this board bill. So they wanted some changes made to it. Mr. Glass was in the meeting. We sat down with Todd Walterman and the mayor. They asked me to final pass it on, to put it off the sine die. They would pass it, and I was stupid enough to do that. He vetoed it, and we were going to come back and make some corrections. I got issues on multiple problems. So I'm asking everybody to vote yes again, even though we've done this already once, on now what is Board Bill 9, it was Board Bill 192.
Would you take a moment? We do have a new member.
Oh, yes.
Who is not here
Oh.
in that session, just to quickly review what the bill does.
So Alderman Mohammed, most of the people were here, you were not, and welcome. We took a tour of the jail. We were getting a lot of complaints. This started, got my curiosity piqued when a lady stole the salt shaker from the Cardinals. And then she got out of control, I guess, with security. They called the police. She was taken over to the Justice Center or the workhouse, one or the other. And in the process, the family had told them that she had mental issues. Oh, wait. The lady, they were told that she had mental issues and that she needed her medicines. Well, the jail doesn't let you do that. They make their own evaluation. Now, they had a very good story as to why she hung herself, along with someone else that hung himself. In the process of over 3 months, we had at least 3 that I remember, people in over there that have killed themselves. Now, when we went there, it was nice. They had this great dinner going, multiple things on a tray, different of what I hear. This bill simply asks them to send us a report of the different things that go on over there, how many people are in there, how many people have mental illness. Does nothing more than ask them to report it. In the process, and those that were here on this committee, in the process, last time they came over with a book, and they said, well, we already have that, and we give it to the mayor's office. And we said, well, can we see that book? And they had it. And we said, well, why aren't we getting it? Well, I think it's disrespectful, but it doesn't matter. We're not the mayor, so the Board of Aldermen, you guys just basically don't count. But we were made a promise. Mr. Glass was here, and I don't know if he'll remember it, but I'll be glad to go get the tape. Oh, yeah, we got all stuff, and we'll send it to you. So during the process of this bill just sitting around, and during the process of the mayor vetoing it, and many months have gone by, this goes almost 7, 8 months ago when it was first introduced, we saw one copy of that. And that was just to prove a point that they do something. In the meantime, they could have been sending us that every month. And maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't seen one. But at least this committee. So to me, this is nothing more than a matter of respect. I want to pass this board bill out the way it was intended to be passed out. And I know this is a long way around the subject. But once it's passed out, and I believe we'll get it through, then I'm willing to come back and look at it and make the handful of changes they want to make. But to sit there and make them now is wrong, because as a board, not one person voted against that. And the full board, some people weren't here because they weren't on the board, or they had lost their seats. The only person voted present, and that was Frank Williamson. And Frank just told me Joe had stepped out of the room, so I didn't even know what I was voting on, so I just voted present. So yet the mayor, even though everybody voted for this, the mayor did not keep his word, and they vetoed this. So I would ask, this bill is familiar to everybody, and hopefully you look through it. It's asking for about 40 some odd categories of things to be checked. It goes back to, it should be the twin of Board Bill 192 as amended. And it's asking for them to look at the different things again. So I don't have much to say beyond that. I would ask that we pass it, get what we had all agreed was the right thing. We came to a few committee hearings, and there was changes made. So, and I don't know if I see the list on here, if that's what you're looking for. I'm looking for it myself. The new guy wrote this.
The new guy, okay. He didn't have a name, just new guy.
One, yeah, they're on there.
Nolan?
Yeah, the list is on there.
Okay. All right then.
It's,
So the bill requires that they do reporting, and that this reporting has specific items that we're looking for.
right,
And that it be posted on a website.
posted on a website and given to us for monthly meetings.
Right. So this is the same as you had in the last session,
Yes,
That
no,
way.
no change from Board Bill 192 as amended.
until this one.
And
Okay.
just as a reminder, or to, again, to the new guys especially, people come in front of us and lie to us. I mean, the police are gonna give us reports that we've never seen. You know, they always come and tell us all these good things, but we never see it. And I'm gonna be more committed this year in public safety and anything that comes into my committee and legislation, that if they say they're gonna do it, if we gotta meet, however often, I wanna make sure that, because it seems like we're told a lot of stuff just to appease us. Oh, yeah, we'll do that. And I know Mr. Glass is gonna get up and talk, but I'd like to know why we haven't been getting that report every month, that he is the one who came up here and said that he was gonna make sure we get it. And I mean, I think his answer from earlier is gonna be, well, the mayor's office. Well, then, good. Why don't we just do away with the Board of Aldermen? We don't need a public safety committee, because the mayor will take care of it. Because we make the laws here, we're the ones that write the ordinances, yet over there, they're disrespecting us. Apparently, the mayor said, well, don't send them that stuff. Well, then we should just disband the Public Safety Committee, because if we're nothing but a joke, and we're gonna pass simple, stupid legislation that is, liquor license, stuff that impacts neighborhoods, if that's all we are, then maybe we should change what we are. But if we're actually what we say we are, whether it's the police, whether it's the jails, whatever we're doing, we deserve that respect. And from now on, my next 4 years, I'm gonna demand that respect.
So your thought here is to pass this out and then because they've talked about some changes to it, and then
Right.
make the changes
And then
at that point.
then I'll make the changes. I want it to pass the way I was promised that it would pass.
Right, and you were told at that time that they would support it, or that the mayor would sign it,
Yeah,
and then, okay.
they led me to believe, push it, sign it, he's signing it as long as I come back and make the changes.
Okay. We'll go with any questions of the sponsor at this point. Alderman Boyd?
Sure. Okay, so
Which Boyd are you?
the alderman.
Oh, that's right, alderman, alderwoman, we got it now.
So the bill that was vetoed, is this the exact bill that was vetoed, or did you make the changes that were supposed to be
No,
negotiated?
this is the exact bill that's vetoed.
Okay, so do you expect that this bill might be vetoed?
If it is, it is.
But you,
Well, I think.
but you agreed to make some changes, though. You agreed to pass
Absolutely.
it last time and make changes. So when was the change supposed to occur?
After it passed, we would have been here right now making those changes.
Okay,
We would have been back at the beginning of the session, long before this needs to be instated, and we would have been making the changes. If
Are
I
you-
tell you, Jeffrey, do this for me, and I understand it's a little different than what you want, but if you do that, I'll give you my word, and I'll make those changes for you. But I want to, rather than come back through here, because we'd already passed it out of here, so rather than come back through here and say, well, even though we passed it, even though it was second read on the floor, we'll just refer it back to the committee. So I just think it's more of a respect thing than anything. I know it's silly to go through that whole process of passing something with the intention of making change, but it was passed, second read and all that, and then they came through and said, well, So I did what I was asked. I put it on the informal calendar to take it out on signing day. So I'm just going back to, I would like to pass it the way it is. I don't know that she'll veto it. She voted for it. I brought the list of who all voted for it.
all right. No, I understand that. Have you had conversation with the mayor's office on this current bill?
No, not with the mayor.
Okay.
Her aide, I think, at one point just asked me if I was going to bring it up. I think he could speak to it himself.
Okay.
But I told him that back then, at that time, I'm not willing to want to make any changes.
No further questions of the sponsor.
Thank you.
Alderman Cone?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alderman Vaccaro, I'm trying to recall when I was the co-sponsor of the
Right, you were
last bill.
co-sponsor, yeah.
I voted for it in committee, but I remember you and I had a conversation in committee because I had questions about implementation and just the monitoring process and some other things, but the director was not available at the time.
Right.
And I believe I ended up voting for it because you did agree that, there were some things that you wanted to change.
Right, and we will make
so-
those changes.
But I think that we voted it out, if I'm not mistaken, because we were coming up on the end of session, and
No, this was, I can go back and get the dates.
okay.
This was closer to the beginning of the session that I put it in. It came out of committee.
Why aren't
actually,
why aren't we working with a bill that has the amendments in it this time around? I mean,
Just out of respect, because again,
but this is a new administration too, so, I mean, the last administration agreed to sign it, but, I mean, I don't know if the
Shane,
current
if I didn't keep
administration's
my-
ready to answer that question or not.
it's more just a respect thing. I realize this is a long way around to do something, but I'd rather pass it the way it is, like it was intended, and then we can come back and work on changes. And I know that's silly, but at this point, it's just a respect thing. It has nothing to do with anything else. Just that, again, the people in the room, it might be a new administration, but Todd is the one that was over there that sat there, and so was Mr. Glass. So it's not especially a new, there's a new mayor.
Have you had a conversation with the current administration to see if they're going to sign it or veto it?
No,
No? Okay. Okay. That's all my questions for the moment.
Alderman Ornowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman, I do remember this bill last year. I did like it the way it passed, so we could have more hearings and, request what we want to see and everything else. But I guess I do have a couple questions, but I'll wait. I think it's more for the commissioner on a couple.
I have a question. Have you seen, and the commissioner's the one that promised us this, have you seen a copy, other than that one time, of the bill that they claim that they print every month, that they were going to give to public safety? Have you seen that yet?
No.
No, nobody has, because it hasn't happened, because they said the mayor's office didn't want it to happen.
Right,
So-
and I agree with you, but, and there is some things, I personally, and I think a lot of people here, would like to start seeing reports such as,
Well, so
I want to know how many people are currently at the workhouse, what's the capacity, what are we doing with the people that's in there for mental health issues? Are they getting the proper care and sent to the right place? So,
I agree.
No, I agree. I like the
And that
idea.
information is being printed right now. It's just that we asked for it, and we were told we'd get it, and yet we have not received it once. And I'm sure there's been about,
Exactly.
so when we sit here and we say, well, whatever, again, keep in mind that when Mr. Glass came up here, he said, here's a copy, we do it now, and I'll make sure you get it. And I can tell you, if he's making sure we got it, I don't know where it's going to.
no. And I agree with you, and I appreciate you bringing the bill back up. I don't have anything else, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Alderwoman Hubbard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a few questions, and maybe some questions that are better answered by Mr. Glass. But what were some of the proposed changes, or what was the
They-
discontentment with some of
They
the
had,
stuff that was in
we had 42 points, I believe, in ours, and they feel they can comply with 38 of them. So-
We are going to bring Mr. Glass up to talk
Right.
about
Oh, okay.
that.
So the difference was about 7 or 8 different things, which some of them seem reasonable, some of them didn't. But again, we would be here today working on the proposed changes instead of bringing up the bill as it was. And again, I probably would be a lot softer if we had been receiving that report every month like we were promised. You know, if that report was coming in, maybe I would have a different attitude, but that report is not coming in, although we do know it's being printed, and we do know the mayor's office gets a copy. It's just the Public Safety Board doesn't because we don't count. Because I was told, well, the mayor's office was the one that was stopping them from giving it to us, so we don't count.
Okay, so all of this data that's being mentioned in these bills, all of these categories of classification and all that stuff, so you're saying that information is being compiled, we're just not receiving it?
Well, we're supposed to be. We were going to be getting a copy. You can ask him when he comes up. Yes, almost all that stuff is in a report that goes to the mayor's office with a promise that we would be getting it from now on. But I don't know what now on means because, again, I keep my word. If anybody's ever noticed it, when I tell you yes on a board bill, I'm yes, and no, I'm no. I don't change on the floor because my word is all that I have up here. And when somebody gave me their word, we would be receiving that, and we're not, I'm not happy. And again, whether you feel like you want to be lied to, we'll send that to you. We hear it all the time. We're supposed to be getting reports, and I know it has nothing to do with this, but we're supposed to be getting reports from the police, like on a monthly basis, and they're going to come in, they're going to give us all these updates. And it's more like, I guess they go in the back room and they laugh. Because whatever you want, cool, baby, we're going to send it. And then we'll never send it. It doesn't make any sense. This is nothing more than saying, do what you say. And again, we can make all the changes today if that's what you want. But I disagree with that. But if you want to, we can amend it again. But I disagree with it. To me, this is not about amending a bill. It's about the questions that, of course, I'll be sitting over there, and I'm going to ask these questions. Why haven't we received what we were told we were going to receive? And if it's because, and that's what I was told, it's because the mayor's office didn't want that to happen, then let's just disband the Public Safety Committee. We don't need it. It's a waste of all of our time because the mayor's office is in control. Or we are what Terry said to the Deltas, we are the ones that make the ordinances and pass the laws. But if we're not important, and we're not important enough that if someone comes in front of us, the head of someone, the head of, in this case, the jails, and says, oh yeah, I'll start sending you to that, and the mayor says, don't do it, and he says, okay. That is total, absolute disrespect for this board. It's not even close to disrespect. It isn't even coming back until I would like to send it to you, but the mayor said no. That's my whole problem in this. And if you guys want to amend this thing, I don't care. It's important that we pass it, even if we do amend it, but I disagree. At this point, yes, it's a different mayor, but Todd and all the people that were in that meeting, and the mayor was not in that meeting, are still over there. And I'm pretty sure they can sit us back around the table and tell us, oh yeah, okay, you know.
So prior to redoing this bill, have you reached out to the current administration to see if there can be some communication and we could be passing something that will?
I want to pass it the way it was passed already by the full Board of Aldermen unanimously. Not anybody voted against it on the full Board of Aldermen, and the mayor took away our vote. And no matter who the mayor is, this bill in its form, the way it is now, was unanimously passed by the Board of Aldermen. And, you know, our vote was taken away. So, no, I have not. I figure we pass it the way it is. Lyda did vote on it, so I would assume she's going to sign it. After she does, you know, if you want to push this date back a little bit farther to give us more time, we can come back. And this committee has my word that we'll come back and try to work with Mr. Glass and make necessary changes. There are not a lot of changes. It's about 6 changes. But at this point, it isn't about the handful of changes. It's about the respect that when the full Board of Aldermen passes something out, it wasn't like it was a close vote or anything. When we pass something out, and the mayor takes our vote away, again, I would ask, do we even have a public safety committee? I mean, there's no need to have one, because if they're gonna make the decisions, then, you know. So anyway, that's just my statement. You wanna make changes, make them, but I disagree. We passed this unanimously, not, there was no, the only vote present was Frank, and it's just because he wasn't sure what we were voting on.
Okay, thank you. Were you completed, Alderwoman?
Yes, no.
Okay. Alderman Mohammed, did you have any questions?
Just one question, Mr. Chairman. Is the commissioner,
Use your
Yeah,
microphone.
use your microphone.
is the commissioner in full support of this board bill?
No. It's pretty simple. The answer to that would be no. He would like to see about 6 or 7 changes made to it. But the commissioner's not a member of the Public Safety Committee. Now, admit you were not on it before. We took a tour of the jail. These were all things that unanimously went through this committee, and we passed it out on the floor. Now, if we're here to do just the commissioner's business, then again, why don't we just do away with this Public Safety Committee? And again, we were told by the commissioner, he's here, we were told by the commissioner, this report's available, and he did bring the report and gave it to us, one copy. We got to pass it around. But this report is generated every month and given to the mayor's office. There was a promise from the commissioner that we would be getting that, and we haven't seen it yet. So, my thing is, why am I worried about that? First, I want to get this bill through the way it is, and it's just my opinion, and it's a lot more work to do it the way I want to do it. But it just simply has to do with what I believe is respectful. And it's going to be whatever you guys decide. If you decide you want to,
Fine. Okay, that completes his question. We'd like to bring up the commissioner, Mr. Glass. Would you talk to us about what some of the proposed changes were?
Sure.
And review whichever way you, but we do need to hear what were those changes.
I can give you a general statement, but first I'd like to thank the committee for this opportunity to speak. This is my first chance to meet the committee. And apologize up front if I don't understand the protocol. Bear with me. For example, I signed in as a witness, and I saw it said pros and cons. I signed pro.
You did.
So that's my position on this bill. The only thing that I wanted to bring forward was that the Board Bill 192 and now 9 is significantly different in terms of verbiage, in terms of some of the requests that it makes than what we do in the city of St. Louis.
Did you have any copies or anything?
Yes, I
that
have
needs to be
several
passed? If you would give that
handouts
to the
of
clerk, we could get it out to everyone.
Things that I wanted to bring to your attention. Oh, that's there's some more. There are several handouts. So the first thing I would draw your attention to is probably the last page or the last handout that says Section 3, Reporting Statistics. This document goes line by line and talk about some of the difficulties we might have in submitting the request as stated, and what we propose is changes or modifications so that we can give you the information you want. The first two documents dated March and April. When I first heard about Bill 192, that same day I convened a committee out of members of the division from various sections, mental health, medical, policy and procedures, my superintendent and myself, and asked them to look at each item and see what we had to do to comply. So before we did not wait for something to pass or not pass. I'm afraid that's just not how I operate. The alderman said they were interested in this information, so I wanted to provide it. Regardless if it's a law or not a law, it doesn't matter to me in my approach. So I continued, I looked at budget issues, how do we gather the data, are we already collecting the data, those kinds of concerns. And so what I did as a result of that, the first one that's dated March, I've already put it online. It was already posted for March. The second one dated April, I don't know if it's made it online yet, but it's going any day now. And it has each item that appears on that bill. And the final handout that I have, that it says the only difference in this document, you can identify it by, it says Division of Corrections proposed changes. As Alderman Vaccaro indicated, I think the original bill had like 43 items, and I've got 34, only because it didn't apply. A good example would be the first one asked about security risk groups and making some report out as it relates to that. I don't classify by security risk groups. Maybe other jurisdictions do. I do not. I'm aware that we have people in the jail, probably 120, that identify themselves as belonging to some gang. But that I don't need to separate them in terms of their gang affiliations. I classify people by victim, predator, threat to general population, ability to live in that circumstance, or if they need to be separated from general population. And so that is, there are two philosophies on how you do that. Some facilities or jurisdictions may say the Crips live here, the Bloods live here, the Viceroys live here, and for me, that philosophy is flawed because you're actually conceding portions of the jail to various gang members and perhaps promoting that very ideal. I put people together, and if they have an issue, and as we classify, we determine based on that. Right now in city jail, there are Crips and Bloods all living in the same unit, and I don't have any issues. If a person ends up in a fight, I try to determine what that's about, and if they say, well, it's because he's a Crip and a Blood, it's still that's what it's about, and I separate them. But I tell you, I've not yet had somebody say, well, we're just fighting because we're Crips and Bloods. It's about they stole this, they disrespected me, they did that. And those are the underlying issues. So I address it on that fashion. So we don't have security risk group classifications that we separate people by. We separate it based on the need, based on the orderly conduct of the facility, how we manage the facility. Another thing is we don't have mental health units. It's not possible, well, we don't have an area where there would be a mental health unit. We have a few staff that we hire through a contract with Medical Horizon that provides mental health services. And we do have a few cells that we're able to designate with cameras for those that are really of concern by the mental health professionals that we can monitor all the time. And that fluctuates and changes based on the population that we have at that any particular given time. And it changes from month to month, how many blacks, how many whites, how many this age, how many that age, how many women, how many men. So we have to adjust. So I don't have a unit. I don't have the luxury of having a mental health ward or unit. So those things to me aren't really major. They're just minor changes. Another one is like how many rec days? Well, every day is a rec day. So how many visits? You can visit anytime you want. How many were asked, can they use the phone, and how many were granted? You don't have to ask to use the phone, you just use it. So a lot of that is germane in some jurisdiction, but at the city jail, that's not how I run a jail. So I have the ACA standards that direct all jails and prisons on what they should be doing. And my goal has been, and I've been successful in a number of areas, to exceed those expectations. For example, ACA says a person can be placed in disciplinary segregation up to 60 days. My procedure says 10, because I know the impact, or at 40 years of doing this, I believe I know the impact of an individual being isolated from their family and others for that period of time. And even if, as accumulation of number of days in and out of segregation, disciplinary segregation, I've set up reviews by mental health and caseworker counselors to address that issue. So I'm not opposed. I didn't sign as con. I never was opposed. As soon as I saw the bill before it was passed, I did it. It's online. Right now, I hired Regis to change our inmate management system so that I can pull the data out of what we have and then add fields and add places where we would enter information that we didn't already collect. And so that's supposed to be up and running by the middle of June. Yesterday, they reported they had a couple of glitches they need to work on. I'm hoping we'll still have that June date, which would put online my proposed amendments or changes to the bill as it stands, only because those issues did not apply. But right now, if you go online under documents for corrections under public safety, you'll see this item online. It's already there. You'll either see the March, and as I indicated, I don't know if the April's been posted yet, but it should be in the next day or two. And then once my item is up, if this committee determines that they want to pass the bill as it is, I'll simply add mine as an amendment, whatever you determine to do. I just wanted the city to reflect something that was real and not something that perhaps applies better to another jurisdiction. In reference to providing data for the committee, I guess I'll address that just briefly. What I brought to a meeting that we had was our monthly report. Now, I wasn't asked to develop a monthly report for the Director of Public Safety, but I chose to do that because I believe in transparency. I don't have a problem with it. In fact, believe it or not, I'm proud of what we do. I'm proud of the progress we made. I'm proud of the fact that we tend to exceed what the expectations are, even as ACA standards. In fact, we're working desperately right now to qualify and be certified in ACA. In fact, some of my staff have already achieved that, as well as PRIA and a couple of other certifications. But nonetheless, so I developed a monthly report to deliver to the director without it being requested. And it is a document about that big. So when Alderman Vaccaro refers to a report, when you refer to a report that I said we already have, that was that monthly report. It wasn't this. This we just completed a month ago, and it's online. And so if I misunderstood or misled or didn't explain myself well, no, I didn't have this already done. And there's some information in here that's not in the monthly report, and obviously there's a great deal of information in the monthly report that's not in here. And some of it, I'm uncomfortable with sharing it because it might reveal security information, but that's up to the Board of Public Safety. I deliver it to the director, and whoever the director says they want to give it to, I don't have a problem. Director says I should give it directly to you, I will. I don't have a problem. Because my 40 years in this career is about public safety. So I don't mean to relay disrespect. I don't mean to lead them out of the loop. But whatever I can do to assist, I will. My only intention here was to indicate, let's give a good document, a document that applies to the city. Look at this document. If it doesn't get to the information you want, tell me. And I'll show you how to get there based on what we collect or what we can do to make sure we can collect that information.
Questions from members of the committee? Alderman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. The ones that, first of all, did you have a copy of Board Bill 9, right?
Yes, I do.
Do you have one with your recommended deletions, I guess? Were you saying that you don't collect the data I mean, just so it'd be easy to go through here
Well-
and knock off the ones that you're saying that you don't have the data for, doesn't apply, or so on and so forth.
Well, there's some just verbiage changes and some that actually don't apply to us. And assuming that 192 and Board Bill 9 are exactly the same, the document that says Section 3 reporting statistics goes down item by number about what we are suggesting does apply, doesn't apply, or maybe
Okay.
the wording should be different somewhat.
Okay.
And the other one that I mentioned, proposed changes, is the result of putting that into effect, where it dropped the number to 34 items. And I think it will give you the information that I believe, based on what I read from the bill, you're looking for, in the work that my committee did.
Okay. I don't have any more questions at this time.
I'd like to skip over you as a sponsor and go to someone else. We'll come back to you now.
We have questions.
Okay. Alderman Cone?
Thank you for being here, Commissioner. Appreciate your time. So I am curious. I understand some of the concerns that you have around the reporting, and I appreciate your candor in terms of sharing your perspective. I guess my question is, at what point in time would you count an inmate as an inmate in your care where these types of requirements come into place? So, for example, someone's arrested at a protest. Now, depending upon where the protests are held, they could end up in one of the, South Patrol, North Patrol, stations. Are the jails that are in those stations underneath your purview as Department of Corrections, or are those underneath the police department's purview? Would those, I don't know if they're even considered inmates at that stage. Would they be, considered as, an inmate as part of this piece of legislation, or what's your perspective on that?
So I do not have any jurisdiction or control over the various districts whatsoever. Technically, a person doesn't become an inmate until they have their first court appearance, and the judge determines that they're to be held in the jail until they respond or answer to their crime. When the police bring them to CJC, that's where everyone is received, the first floor is the police's intake manned by the police. That's where they do some of the booking process. And and I have a staff member, contracted staff member. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just for clarification
Sure.
purposes, for those on the committee not familiar, CJC is the facility that's across the street from City
That's
Hall.
correct.
The
Thank you.
maximum security facility that we have.
That is correct, thank you. And so I have one staff member on that floor, and it's medical, because we determine if they're fit for confinement, which means, do we have the medical services and mental health services to meet the needs that identify when that individual is brought in? If not, then they're taken out, and the police take them to a facility that's appropriate. And then they go to the second floor, which is also, well, that floor is controlled by police, sheriff, used to be marshals, and I have staff on there, on that floor. So the police, they're still arrestees. They still belong in the custody of the police, and they continue the booking process. Apparently, long before I got there, maybe in 2002, there was an agreement with corrections and the police that we would watch their arrestees. So at that point, even though they're still not inmates, we employ all of our classification techniques and separating and who is that and who do we need to keep apart, victims, co-defendants, people that feel threatened, all those happen at that stage. And then we watch them while
That's before they're inmates, but
That's correct.
after they're arrested.
That's correct. The previous sheriff, I told him, had I been here, I would have never agreed to that. And if I was the chief of police, I would not allow it because they are my arrestees. I want to be responsible for my people. But since they did, that's what I do. And then they're held until they have their first court appearance. Then they're in the sheriff's custody. And then if they make bond, they go on their way. There's no entry in our computer system that says they were ever there because they weren't found guilty of anything, which is appropriate, because it's not against the law to be arrested, so you should not have a record of that. And if they come back and they aren't able to make bond, or the court doesn't set a bond, and the sheriffs bring them to us, they become inmates. Then we classify them further a second time to determine what facility, based on crime, and what, whether or not they can live in general population, or where in general population can they live, or do they need administrative segregation. That's when they actually become inmates and we are in charge of them, even though they're still the sheriff's prisoners.
Okay, so, and thank you for that, because I think it's an important distinction, because I think people will oftentimes get confused in terms of, what qualifies as an inmate versus an arrestee. And, when someone hears the commissioner say that they have access to the phone, there's the phone. Well, when they're going through that intake process, they don't necessarily have access to the phone, right?
Excuse me for correcting you there, they do, because I have the phone contract, so I provide that in the building. And not only do they have access at those levels, I've made it free.
Then I'll have to bring up some specific situations with you offline, because that has not been the case with some of the folks that I've had to help through the system at points. So,
Right, and I don't have the ability, I'm not the one that gives them access to the phone. I
Right.
provide the phone. Maybe that's a better
So
statement.
I think that's a distinction.
But
that
I'll
needs to
be
made.
glad to
Yeah,
listen to what you indicate.
So I guess, in terms of the board bill itself, with the potential amendments that you're bringing before us today, administratively, do you think that this is something that you would be able to do? I don't think that I had the benefit of actually having this conversation with you in the committee last time this was introduced. So, and I think my primary concern back then was administratively, if this is something that you have the capacity to do, if it's something that you're already doing, and, just if you're able to do it, if we pass it out.
We will become able to do it. We're already working, as I indicated, with Regis, who does some of our software for our jail management system. Some of the items we already collected, but the inmate management jail system that we have in the city is quite old. And you can't just pull information because you have it. It's kind of a manual situation. For a long time, what we would do is print sheets this big and go and find our information, and we still do that with a lot of data we report out. What I'm working with Regis now is to be able to have those data fields such that we can pull reports on, and I've been working on this for 2 years to try to get to that point. But I've already, as soon as I saw 192, I met with Regis and told them what I needed them to do, gave them a copy of the bill that was proposed, and asked them, what could you add that we can make a field so that we can report that out? And that's what I was speaking to, that they indicate to me they're hoping they'll have that up and running by the middle of June.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you.
Alderman Ornowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioner. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Just a couple things I guess I just want to ask. So I know when the police bring the arrestees down across the street to the Justice Center and they're booked in, and the first floor there's what I think you have like 4 or 5 cells down there.
That's, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So once they're in there and they get processed, and ones that get out on their own recognizance, basically for city charges or whatever charges. So once they're gone, then the other people in custody, so they'll go over to Division 25 or whatever on state charges in front of a judge, and they'll deem whether it's bondable or not bondable.
That's correct.
And then when they come back over, then they're actually in the sheriff's custody,
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
And then, so when they come back, so is that when you determine, I guess, do they go down to the workhouse on Hall Street, or do some stay over here, or is just like, or is this over here is like, people have been convicted, is that a staging place for they leave to go, to state, correctional facilities?
So all those things you said are true. The vast majority of the people we have in the division at both locations are pre-trial, been convicted of nothing. We do get writs, which means a person's already been convicted, but they come back on another case and we hold them for the state. The CJC, or downtown, is the maximum security. MSI simply means medium security institution. So we classify them by that means also and separate them. The only exception to that would be that all the women are housed at MSI.
Right. In the modified trailer, I call it.
Yeah,
Is that
it's,
still up there?
yeah.
But no, I get it. So I guess a couple concerns I have, because I know a few years back, I mean, let's face it, the old city workhouse has lived beyond its time. So when people are up on Hall Street, I mean, what's supposedly the maximum capacity of people on Hall Street versus what do we have? Is there times where we unfortunately have more till we can find other places to put them at? And then the other thing is, you know as well as me, we do have people that get arrested that really have serious mental health problems. And I guess it's the nurses, whoever interviews them when they first come in, and if they feel like they don't belong, I guess behind a cell, that they really need help from a mental facility, do we have the capacity within the city or somewhere that we can actually take them where they can get the proper help?
So let me see if I can remember the first question.
Okay.
So the population, I believe, at MSI, and if it's not exact, I apologize, is probably 1138.
Okay.
But that's, and I don't want to get technical, but that deals with, some of those beds are used for administration, medical, and those kinds of things. So sometimes they may not be occupied. So the number for general population would be smaller. Our population today is probably right around 750. When I first started back in 2012, our population was closer to 2,000. And now we're, for the division, and now we're at 1,450. And maybe this will also address or segue into another question you asked. I think part of the reason for the reduction, at least what I've attempted to do, is I've partnered with the mental health docket. And I've given them access to the facility where they can see that individual sooner. They used to take 2-3 months before they see them. I provide space and resources so they can see them in the jail as soon as possible to make that recommendation to the judge if there needs to be another placement. I work with SLU Law on that. And I also, the same thing with the drug court. I provide them a space so they can do their evaluation and determination if that person's suitable for that program at the earliest point possible. So I'm not sure what your last question was again. Do you recall? I don't think I answered them all.
No. I think you did. We was talking about people with mental health issues, and did we have a
Yes.
connection where, we can actually get them help instead of them sitting in a cell where they shouldn't be.
Right.
Until it's time to be looked at or their case or whatever.
Right.
And,
So, I'm sorry.
But no, and I think you gave me the answer, what I'm looking for, and I'm really glad to hear that the population has really decreased for what we had there at one time. So it tells me that you're keep trying to move forward and making things work, and it's kind of in a tough situation up there on Hall Street because, the building has outlived itself, let's be honest. It's old and inundated and needs a lot of work or whatever. But, and that's what I thought about over here. I know it's a holding place for people once they're convicted, that they get shipped out there or bussed out or whatever. So, but
Yes, if they're going to state.
Right.
And of course, the ones that have been convicted to serve time in the jail, so in the state of Missouri, if you're convicted, if your sentence is a year or less, you serve it in the jail. Those people are at MSI.
Okay,
It's
okay.
only, it represents maybe a dozen people out
Okay.
of 14, 15.
So a year or less, they just serve it out at MSI instead of?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Well, Commissioner, thank you very much. You've answered my questions for me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Hubbard?
Thank you. I have a few questions. First of all, thank you for, coming and answering some of our questions, and definitely offer us some clarification on, really what's going on. So, in regards to, like, the proposed changes, the major one that I see that you said that needs to be removed is just the fact that, about the classification, because you said we don't have security risk groups or whatever.
That's true.
Okay, and so, I mean, like you said, you don't segregate people based off what gang affiliation and stuff, which, if that's working, then that's good, because I found that kind of odd. But, so how do you determine who will go to, MSI or who will stay at the Justice Center if you don't have these risk groups?
So that doesn't have anything to do with the risk group. It has to do mainly with the class of the offense. So the more dangerous offenses, A's and B's, are at CJC.
Okay.
And the lesser offenses would be at MSI. As I indicated, the only exception would be that we house all the women at MSI. So no matter whatever their offense is.
Okay, so okay, so there is some type of classification.
Oh, yeah, we have an extensive classification system.
Okay.
Very extensive.
Okay. And, my next question, when did you say Regis will have, that system developed so that it could give us better information? I know you said the current system was somewhat antiquated.
Well, there's two things there. One, I have a need to manage the jail by statistics, data, and information like that. It's difficult to pull now because the system, whenever it was designed, doesn't have dedicated fields that you can pull on. Even when I was doing a report for the director's office about how education, race, age, and those kind of demographics, we actually had to print reports, and I had someone working for me at the time. It was temporary. With the partnership I had with SLU, they would gather all those reports and go back to SLU and enter them to computer to print our reports. And so that's where we're at, and I've been working on that process, or they have, for a couple of years, trying to get the information. It's forthcoming, I don't know when, but the latest project I had them do for me was to take Board Bill 192 and see what we have in IGMS and already collecting and what we were not, and then provide for it. And we came up with a list of 34 items that we thought would address Board Bill 192, and they indicate that that should be rolled out in June. They did tell me yesterday that they had a couple of glitches they needed to work on, but they didn't say that it would push back the date. So I'm hoping we'll be able to report the information you requested for the month of May, because I do it every month, not every quarter, I do it every month. For the month of May, in the middle of June, I'm hoping.
And once all of that information, is compiled, do you see any barriers to you, giving that information to, the Director of Public Safety and then them giving it to us? Do you have any concessions or reservations about that information being given to us?
On the contrary, it's online right now. I've given it to the general public, anybody who wants to look at it.
Okay.
But if I need to do it in another form and I misled saying that I would, that's fine. But it's online right now. Anybody can go look at it, pull it up, whatever. Yeah, it's available.
Ready. No other questions?
Alderman Mohammed, any questions?
Yes, sir, just one question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Commissioner, so the Division of Corrections does not currently have a mental health unit.
That's correct.
Is there like a plan and process to establish one, or you don't see the need for one?
I'm not aware of a plan. I've not submitted a plan. Is there, to say there's no need for one in the jail would not really answer the question or give my true position. There is a need for mental health generally in the public, but not in the jail. A person who has a mental health need should be at that facility. I was working with the state when legislation or law came about that closed a lot of those facilities, and in the state prisons, we had to deal with issues like dual diagnosis, mental health problems, aging, homeless. It's more, we do the best we can, but it's more than, a jail's not meant for that. My response to the concern, which was brought forward to me by NAMI, was that there existed a program that would train correctional officers how to identify mental health needs and to be able to report that out and make sure we address it. And they wanted to give us a couple of slots to train a couple of people in our division. I convinced them to go to a federal grant, and I've trained all of my staff, and they are certified in mental health first aid. I'm sure that at the time we were had the largest percentage of any jail in the country that had people certified in mental health first aid because they pointed out there was a need and that something existed to assist. And now it's a mandatory part of my new staff hiring and annual training.
Are there any neighboring correctional facilities that have a mental health unit?
I'm not aware. I don't know. I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
You have a few questions? Okay.
I'll keep it quick.
You'll keep them brief, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my first question would be,
Yep.
and just so I'm clear, and I don't know that, to answer the question that we talked about briefly, so that report's given to the public safety director every month,
Yes.
and that's the report you were going to give to us, but you said that you don't give it to us because, I guess, someone told you not to give it to us?
I don't recall that conversation because I've spoke to no one about giving it to you,
What?
and no one's told me I cannot. It's a report I deliver to the Director of Public Safety, and whatever they choose to do, that's fine.
But you had told us you were going to give it to us.
Okay, so then I guess I'll apologize. The report that I was going to give to you is related to Bill 192. At least that's what I intended to relay. If you're asking for something different, I don't have a problem with that. But it's something I deliver to the director. I'll ask the director. If they don't have a problem, I'll just deliver it.
Well, why would you have to ask the director?
It's their report. It belongs to
I
the
mean,
director.
it's not something we can just ask for?
From my, if I may,
The only reason I
from my
bring,
understanding, you created a report to go directly to the public safety director.
That's correct.
And so that understanding is that was a report to the public safety director.
That's correct.
And so then you feel that to give it to this committee, you would need to clear that with the public safety director.
Perhaps it's an unnecessary step to take. I don't know. As I indicated, I don't know the protocol that's required.
There it is.
But
Right.
I certainly don't care. It contains a great deal more, and perhaps something you're not even interested in, than Board Bill 192. It talks about a lot of things about staff members, it talks about vacancies, it talks about training that occurred, it talked about programs I have for inmates, on and on and on.
Well, I know you also mentioned that you had a concern about some of the sensitive information that is in that report.
Sure. It
Yeah,
talks
in terms
about uses of force, how, what we found, what we learned in those reports due to investigations. I wouldn't want that information in general public, just.
And security issues.
Yeah, for security reasons. But I guess I'm admitting that as a corrections administrator, you hold those kind of reports and information close. However, I don't think that should include the Board of Public Safety. We're in the same business. I can really release that to you without worrying about it getting to the general public or compromising security. At least that's how I feel.
and I would be fine if, and the reason I bring that up is we were in streets the other day,
Right.
and Alderman Moore was asking why, when I pass certain ordinances, they're not enacted, and Deanna Venter and I know Jeffrey can attest to this, Deanna said, well, I have the authority to not do what you ask. So if you pass an ordinance and I feel it's not in the interest of whatever, we won't do it. So, I mean, I just, what's it? Well, I'm just saying.
Well, if I
But,
can,
but it just gets more and more, I guess, maybe I'm getting thin-skinned, who knows? But it just seems to me that we're up here, we debate stuff, we work on it. I'd be happy to take the time to go back and look at the video from when you were last here, when you did bring that report. And maybe I'm wrong, and I'll come back in a minute if I'm wrong, but I'll swear that you said you would be providing that to us.
well,
And all our meetings
I
are
personally
taped,
don't
so
have
I
a need for
can
you to
find
prove
it.
right or wrong. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. And
I
in
would-
terms of my intent about what you would like to see, I didn't wait for a bill to pass. I did it. I did it immediately, and it's already online.
Okay, that's really my only question.
That's the only
I
question.
would like
Okay.
that report, at least given to the chairman, and then you could decide if you want to share it or not, but I would at least like somebody, the chairman of the committee, to get that report.
And I apologize for interrupting you, but also, I didn't even provide it to the mayor. I provided it to the director, and the director provided it to the mayor. But whatever the protocol is, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. All right, then, I believe that I don't think there are the votes to pass the bill out in its present form. I think we may need to have further conversation about it, and so at this point, I'm going to hold the bill in committee. As we take a vote on it and it doesn't pass, then it's a dead issue, and we don't want this to be a dead issue. But if I make this clear, I am always in support of all the people getting whatever information that they ask and they require to make intelligent and informed decisions with this Board of Aldermen. When an alderman comes forward and I'm chair of a committee and they want a piece of information, they should get it. And I will greatly support it and will support it and have supported it since I've been here. I do support the bill and the concept of being able to get this information. We need further discussion onto what is possible, not what is possible, but there are certain areas that are not applicable to the city of St. Louis that are in other cities. And so then to simply ask you to report on something that does not fit the city, to me, that also does not make sense. And so I think that requires further conversation. But if it comes to the bottom line as to a department denying an alderman information, then you know where I'm going to fall. I'm going to fall on the side of providing that information. Because this city is not governed by just an administrator, but also the legislative branch. And that requires the proper information to be able to make those decisions. Many of us, I know I am personally very impressed by what you have done and how you approach things. The fact that you say the mentally ill should be in that type of facility and not in jail is, to me, both a progressive viewpoint on it and one that makes sense. And where I think that many of us appreciate the angles from which you're coming and how you're attempting to not just modernize the jail, but to humanize it. And we appreciate that. Okay?
Thank you.
With that, we'll hold this bill. We're going to come back. Now, I'm not saying that this bill may not pass out as is, but we know right now that the committee would like to have more discussion on it. And so we're going to hold it.
And unless you object, it's still going to be online.
No, you should continue to put that online. We appreciate it.
All right.
And so with that, we'll hold the bill. If there's no other items on the agenda today, and so that's the case, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.